Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and remain standing while the CSUN Jazz A-Band, under the direction of Professor Scott Whitfield, plays the national anthem accompanied by vocalist Sophia Stratton and performed in American Sign Language by students from CSUN's graduating class.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The platform party is here to honor all the remarkable students being recognized in this honors convocation. Please join me in acknowledging our distinguished platform party. Distinguished platform party members, please rise as you are introduced and remain standing until the full platform has been acknowledged. I also ask that the audience hold its applause until the entire platform party and special guests have been introduced. On the second row, from right to left, Jeffrey Noblet, Associate Vice President, Marketing and Communications. Joyce Foyt-Javier, Dean for the Tsing College of Extended Learning. Dr. Hamid Johari, Interim Dean for the College of Engineering and Computer Science. Dr. Christine Hayashi, Associate Dean for the Michael D. Eisner College of Education. Dr. Jackie Stallcup, Interim Dean for the College of Humanities. Dr. Farrell Webb, Dean for the College of Health and Human Development. Natalie Mason-Kinsey, Chief Diversity Officer. Dr. Elizabeth Adams, Associate Vice President for Undergraduate Studies. Dr. Mark Stover, Dean for the University Library and today's Mace Bearer.
On the first row from the right to left, Dr. Mary Pat Stein, Faculty President. Colin Donahue, Vice President for Administration and Finance. Beverly Intagu, Associated Students President. Dr. Chandra Subramaniam, Dean for the David Nazarian College of Business and Economics. Dr. Don Hoskin, Dean for the Mike Curb College of Arts, Media, and Communication. Hillary Baker, Vice President for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer. Dr. Stella Theodoulou, Interim Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. Dr. William Watkins, Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. Dr. Diane Harrison, University President. Robert Taylor, today's keynote speaker. Dr. Rob Gonzalez, Vice President for University Advancement and President of the CSUN Foundation. Jill Smith, Chief of Staff. Dr. Jan Dominic Searcy, Dean for the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. Dr. Jerry Stinner, Dean for the College of Science and Mathematics. Dr. Matt Kahn, Interim Vice Provost. Cindy Chernow, CSUN Alumni President. Let us please recognize this year's Honors Convocation Platform Party with an applause.
It is now my great pleasure to introduce our university president, Dr. Diane Harrison.
Thank you, Cheryl. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the university, I am pleased to welcome you to the 2019 Honors Convocation for California State University, Northridge. Yes, welcome. With tonight's ceremony, we formally mark the start of CSUN's commencement celebrations, which begin next week. This evening, we are proud to recognize those students who have truly striven for and achieved excellence. Each of you being honored here tonight should take great pride in being invited to participate. Your dedication to your academic studies and being an engaged student and citizen symbolizes our mission at CSUN to help students fulfill their potential and become leaders in their professions and in their communities. On behalf of the entire CSUN community, our faculty, our staff, your fellow students, and our alumni, I extend to each of you my congratulations. We are also very pleased that your families and friends have joined us this evening to celebrate and honor your accomplishments and your unique talents and your gifts. I invite all of you to the grand reception being held at the Matador Square and University Student Union Plaza immediately following the ceremony. There will be live music, refreshments, and photo opportunities you won't want to miss. It is now my great pleasure and privilege to introduce tonight's keynote speaker, Mr. Robert Taylor, an engineer, a lawyer, a financial services leader, and community builder who has made it his lifelong goal to pay it forward. He is also a CSUN alumnus who in 2016 was honored with a Distinguished Alumni Award, the university's highest alumni recognition. Mr. Taylor earned his undergraduate degree at CSUN in engineering, where he credits faculty mentors and supporters in the program for helping him develop the skills that allowed him to advance and to fulfill his goals. From there, he attended Stanford, where he earned an MBA and a law degree, launching his career at McKinsey Company, one of the world's most recognized management consulting firms. He then went on to co-found 2 private equity and financial services firms, including Centinela Capital Partners, LLC, where he now serves as partner and CEO. But in addition to becoming an entrepreneur, Robert's goal from an early age was to bring his skills and resources back to his community to create opportunities, and he has done that at many steps in his journey. He served as an instrumental figure in Rebuild LA, initiative following the 1992 riots. And it was through this work that he connected with and became a leader in the Urban League in Los Angeles and nationally, whose mission is to enable African Americans to secure economic self-reliance, parity, power, and civil rights. In his present role as CEO of Centinela, he has been able to create exceptional value for investors and has been a pacemaker among similar firms in bringing higher levels of diversity among their general partners. On a personal note, I'm also very pleased that Robert has remained a proud and engaged Matador, having served as a volunteer at CSUN in many different capacities, including for many years on the CSUN Foundation Board, where he is currently vice chair. Throughout his career, Robert Taylor has blazed a trail in his profession and translated that success to realize economic justice for disadvantaged communities. He's also been a true leader and a model for others, who has shown compassion and a big heart in all he does. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Robert Taylor.
It's going to do what it wants to do. Thank you, President Harrison, for that very generous, overly generous introduction. President Harrison, distinguished dais, parents, guests, honors recipients of the class of 2019, Matadors everywhere, good afternoon. It is great to be with you today. It is a genuine honor and privilege to be invited to speak, and an awesome responsibility. I asked around and I was given this advice: be wise and wish them well. I don't know about the wise part, but I do have 5 well wishes for you today. Before going any further, I want to acknowledge and thank the love of my life, my wife, partner, and best friend, Joy. She is the very best of many good things that happened for me during my time here at CSUN. Indeed, my first wish for you is that you, like me, find a partner who knows the real you, flaws and all, and loves you anyway. Someone in whose eyes you see reflected the person you want to be, and thereby inspires you to work every day to be that person, a better person. Thank you, baby. Now, President Harrison just shared with you an introduction of me that apparently led those responsible for the day to conclude that I am an appropriate choice for this address. Yes, if I may be immodest for a moment, I do have the resume. And I sort of look the part: tall, graying, lean, slightly stern visage. I didn't realize I still had those on. But on the other hand, I'm wondering, what am I doing here? How did I get here? And now, what do I do? And I don't mean the nerves that normally accompany public speaking that everyone has. No, these questions have a very different origin. They've made numerous guest appearances among my thoughts over the years as I've encountered circumstances that I did not begin to imagine myself in when I sat where you now sit. For example, about a decade ago, my partner Fidel and I were in Sacramento on business. During a break, we decided to walk over to the Capitol and visit some friends. As we approached the Capitol building, we saw students and teachers with placards and bullhorns marching and holding a rally. Here we were, suited up, casually about to visit leaders of the Senate and the Assembly. It was totally surreal. As we walked up the steps, I turned to Fidel and said to him, "That used to be us. We were the ones fighting the power. Now we're the man. How did this happen? What am I doing here? How did I get here? And now what do I do?" These questions reflect amazement, joy, and gratitude. They are an imperceptible pause, an internal pause to smell the latest rose populating the bouquet that's been latest rose that populates the bouquet that's been my life. Before jumping into the fray, because generally these questions occur, they accompany a call to action. So what am I doing here this evening? I like to think it's because we, you and I, are part of this heritage of excellence that is CSUN. But I also suspect that it's because, like me, your heritage began before CSUN and will continue well beyond it. My heritage of excellence began at home. Now, some of you may have heard my story before, and even if you haven't, I suspect it will sound familiar. My mother was the most influential person in my life. She had high standards for us, but lecturing wasn't her style. She was a single mother. She didn't have time for it. Instead, we learned everything we needed to know to be successful in life just by watching her. Work hard, believe in yourself, stick together. Life isn't always fair. Don't complain, don't quit. And of course, do not embarrass her by wasting the sacrifices that she made for us. She told us we were smart and that there was no reason for us not to do well in school. And she set the example. She was always studying something, initially to advance her career, but later in life to pursue her passion for religion. She began her career as a clerk, but she became the Reverend Dr. Geneva Williams. Now, Mama's example was also backed up by swift, old-fashioned discipline, if you know what I mean. But for me, her harshest rebuke was when she would say, "Robert, that's not right." For some reason, "that's not right" stung the most and stuck. That's not right says there's a higher standard than simply not being wrong, a higher duty than being neutral or uninvolved, an affirmative duty to do right. And on those occasions when you fall short, even if you're not called on it, try harder next time. Mama was teaching me not to settle, but to seek excellence. In Mama's eyes, I also saw the me I wanted to be. Hers was an amazing gift. Honors recipients of the class of 2019, if there is a Reverend Geneva in your life here today, or with you in spirit, take a moment and salute them for their gift. How did I get here? Not just to this podium tonight, but the whole thing. How did this career come together, this whole body of work come together and result in an invitation to speak this evening? Well, the answer, of course, is I worked my butt off. And you did too, and you earned it. We both earned it. No key, no side door, no help from a test-taking whiz. So my second wish for you is that if you find yourself in surprising places in the future, that you hear the call to action and you move forward in such circumstances confidently, knowing that you belong in that place and at that moment. Your presence in such places, like your presence here this evening, will not be an accident, a mistake, or a gift. You will be ready for the moment, and you will have earned it. But that's not the whole answer. Luck plays an often pivotal role in life. For example, years ago when I was a young consultant, before the internet, before SurveyMonkey and those kinds of tools, I was working on an assignment doing customer interviews in small towns throughout the South. I mean, these were really small towns. Often they shared the name of the person that I was to interview. When I would arrive for the meeting, I'd be greeted by an assistant who would invariably ask, "Are you here to see old Mr. or young Mr.?" Now, this was the 1980s, so it was always Mr. The question would trigger a flurry of scenes from classic movies about the South. Old Mr. or young Mr.? As well as questions. What am I doing here? How did I get here? And now, what do I do? Young Mr. for 200, Alex. I'd say young Mr., figuring my chances would be better with young Mr. I'd be shown to his office. Young Mr. would rise to greet me, look up, and his jaw would hit the floor. I was not what he was expecting when he agreed to talk to McKinsey. Embarrassed, because again, this was the South of the late 1980s. You know, a simpler time, a time when people were civil, attempted to progress, and were embarrassed by their lingering biases. Embarrassed, young Mr. would proceed to tell me all of his corporate secrets. That's just a slight exaggeration. But long story short, the client loved the work, implemented all of our recommendations. Company's stock price soared. Company's CEO was named the executive of the year in this industry. And the partner in charge of the project thought I was brilliant. Thought I had amazing people skills to distill that kind of information from these tough customers. The work became a case study for teaching consultants all over the world. And a few years later, I became the second black partner in the history of McKinsey Company, 10 years after the first had left. Now, luck is not the reason for my success, but it did play a role. Now, not random chance like winning the lottery, to be sure, but there is some luck in that story of old Mr. and young Mr., because I don't think that story happens in the 1960s. But the luck I'm speaking of is the luck that is that phenomenon which happens when preparation meets opportunity. Now, of course, I would not embarrass Reverend Geneva by not being prepared. I was ready for any mister that walked through the door. We can absolutely control our level of preparedness. However, opportunity is another story. We are largely dependent on others, the kindness of others, for opportunities, sometimes anonymous and unknown others. Perhaps the second biggest favor that fortune granted to me, second to being Geneva's son, was being born in California at a time of expanding opportunity. We all are, and this university is, the legacy of the vision and leadership of the first Governor Brown and others and their collective investment in our common destiny. Their master plan for education, crafted in the 1950s, meant that a black child born to a single mother in the turbulent 1960s in California would have an opportunity that matched his talent and the freedoms that were being unleashed by the civil rights struggle. I think my high school principal summed up the society's generic expectations for my life when he told me I wouldn't live to see 20, because in his opinion, I had a big mouth, and that was not good for a black boy's longevity. But that was not to be the story of my life, because others had created an amazing opportunity. There was a way to rise above the future that the vice principal had foretold for me. I had a path to realizing the American dream. LA's public schools were one of the finest in the nation at the time, and the equivalent of tuition here at CSUN my freshman year was $88. Change either one of those things, and perhaps the vice principal is correct. Luck plays a role. Thus, my third wish for you is that you maintain a sense of humility in good times, equanimity in bad, and charity and empathy at all times for your fellow travelers, and that these sensibilities inspire you to create opportunities for others, especially for others who you may never know or who may be different from you. Now, what do I do? Well, Joy and I have 3 daughters who are also here with us this evening. They were the classes, yes, woo, I'm very proud of them too. They were the classes of 2016 and 17, so about your age. Whenever we talk with them about some of the challenges they face, they always listen politely because they're Joy's daughters. Then they immediately push back because they're my daughters also. And they say, but things were different back in your day. True. Once we tamed fire and invented the wheel, what else did we have to worry about? Well, seriously, the girls are correct. Your generation is commencing into a world with pressing problems. Engaging, let alone solving such problems, is further complicated by what seems to be a systematic assault on character, integrity, rules, science, principles, values, and even facts. Haters look at this picture. They look at the challenges to which we, and increasingly you, must rise, and they are as pessimistic about your future as the vice principal was about mine. They argue that America's best days are behind it and press for a return to the past. They declare that America is full, closed for business. They conclude that the American dream is overdrawn. They want us to believe that this is the best we can do, and that your generation should have less ambitious dreams. All I can say is that's not right. Accepting their view of America and our prospects would be settling, not seeking excellence. It would be un-American. I'm hopeful but not naive. I know that we know the challenges we face are real, but we know, especially we matadors know, the American dream was never easy, and it is not an entitlement. We are undaunted because we also know that history challenges every generation. Ask the Pilgrims. Ask Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who described the civil rights movement's challenges as difficult days ahead, literally hours before he died in the struggle. Ask the brave men and women of our armed forces who stoically acknowledge the constant existential challenge to our way of life when they say, as the Navy SEALs say, the only easy day is yesterday. Most fundamentally for us as Americans, Ours is a transcendent challenge eloquently stated in our country's motto, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. This was the model chosen by the baby America, a new country with an audacious and universal dream. A country formed by people from many lands who found common cause and reason to unite, to come together in their aspiration for individual freedom and justice for all. We stand on the shoulders of many giants, but they were only human, just like us. Trust me, it is not over, but history does now ask, can the American dream endure? Can we continue to form one out of the many, as the many are increasingly diverse in the way we look, worship, and love? Can the American dream stand in the face of small-minded opportunists who seek narrow tribal advantage by exploiting the discomfort that often accompanies solving difficult problems and making progress? Can the American dream stand in the face of naysayers, foreign and domestic, working to precipitate our unraveling? Now, what do I do? My fourth wish is that you see our country for what it is, flaws and all, and love it anyway. In your own way, whatever your occupation or avocation, wherever life takes you, let your eyes and the continuing excellence of your work reflect the America that our country wants to be. When America falls short, call it, and then be part of working harder next time. Inspire America not to be great again, but to be America. E pluribus unum. One people, united in keeping the dream machine alive and open for business for all comers. Honors graduates of the class of 2019, the questions are yours. My final wish is that your answers fill your lives with marble, purpose, and joy. Excellence is a high standard. The obligation, affirmative. Dream audaciously. Be matadors. America and the world needs more of us. Congratulations. Best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for your inspiring thoughts. On behalf of the university, I would like to present you with this momentum to always remind you of this beautiful evening and your inspiration here at Cal State Northridge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Testing, okay. This marks the 37th year during which we have assembled to honor CSUN's heritage of excellence as reflected through the accomplishments of our students. Of the approximate 11,500 students eligible to graduate, about 2,500 students received an invitation to this honors convocation in recognition of their superior scholastic and personal achievement. This evening, we'll be highlighting 6 remarkable graduates: our outstanding graduate student, 4 outstanding graduating seniors, and the Wolfson Scholar. These awards have been sponsored by the CSUN Foundation, the Alumni Association, and private donations. Each recipient will receive a cash award and Honors Convocation medallion.
The outstanding graduate student will now be recognized. This award is presented to a graduate student who has demonstrated academic excellence and produced a high-quality thesis project. This year's Outstanding Graduate Award, sponsored by the Nathan O. Friedman Memorial Fund, is presented to Fred Fragoso. Fred is a first-generation college student from South Los Angeles, who faced numerous challenges as a student that blurred his perspective of his abilities and potential. However, once given professional insight by various mentors in and outside academia, he discovered the world of academic research and gained the confidence to call himself a scientific researcher. This year, Fred will graduate with his Master of Science degree in biochemistry with distinction and is being recognized today as this year's Nathan O. Friedman Outstanding Graduate Student, the highest honor presented to a CSUN graduate student in recognition of their distinguished and exemplary scholarship. Fred has earned a 3.96 GPA and humbly credits his remarkable achievement to the support and guidance he has received from CSUN faculty. Fred also earned his bachelor's degree in biochemistry at CSUN. One professor remembered his rather rough beginning as a freshman student in her classroom. The university setting was initially a shock to Fred, and his lack of confidence resulted in his barely passing the course. Since then, quote, Fred's confidence has grown by leaps and bounds, and he's gone from being the guy in the back of the class I wasn't sure would make it to the top of his MS program class. During his graduate studies, Fred has poured himself into research. He has presented in various scientific conferences, both national and international, mentored students of educational and socioeconomic backgrounds similar to his own, and won multiple awards and scholarships surrounding his graduate research. His graduate experience has clarified his decision in pursuing an advanced degree in molecular pathology. Fred was accepted into 4 PhD programs and has elected to enter the University of Pennsylvania Biochemistry and Molecular Biophysics PhD program in the fall. Ladies and gentlemen, Fred Fragoso.
The Outstanding Graduating Senior Awards are presented to 4 students who have demonstrated academic excellence, made significant contributions to the campus and community, and have demonstrated exceptional achievements or overcome extraordinary life circumstances. Selection of just 4 students from the many applicants for this award was extremely difficult. Before announcing this year's Outstanding Graduating Seniors, let us acknowledge the other student finalists for this award. Finalists, please stand as I read your name if you are present. Catherine Charnay, Honors in English. Nolan Bumstead, Electrical Engineering. Alexandria Smolin, Cinema and Television Arts. Benuri Fonseca, Business Law. Please join me in applauding the accomplishments of these finalists for the Outstanding Graduating Senior Award.
The first Outstanding Graduating Senior Award, sponsored by the CSUN Foundation, is presented to Bernard Tila. Bernard is graduating with a 3.85 grade point average while double majoring in public health and Asian American studies. Bernard has been on the dean's list since he first arrived at CSUN. Bernard is a student leader who has balanced his drive for academic achievement with a passion to serve his fellow students and the CSUN community. He has served as an intern for the EOP Dream Center, a senator for the College of Humanities, and as chair of the University Student Union Board of Directors. Taking advantage of the academic opportunities afforded to him, Bernard has also conducted research to identify stressors that impact the educational attainment of undocumented students, which he has applied to his work as the training and assessment coordinator for the EOP Dream Center. As one faculty member wrote, Bernard is the ideal candidate for the Outstanding Graduating Senior Award because he has demonstrated both academic and leadership accomplishments despite institutional barriers that have hindered many undocumented students from pursuing higher education. He has also earned every departmental award in Asian American Studies. Please join me in recognizing this outstanding young man who is a true role model of advocacy, inclusivity, and compassion for others. Congratulations, Bernard.
The next Outstanding Graduating Senior Award, sponsored by the Karen Leon and Rita Goldstein Salter Memorial, is presented to Kari Campbell Wright. Kari Campbell Wright is graduating in just 4 years with a degree in kinesiology with a GPA of 3.51. Mr. Campbell Wright is a citizen of the university. Kari is willing to share his time and talents with others, and he's contributed to the College of Health and Human Development by serving as one of the Associated Student Senators and served on the Search and Screen Committee for the Associate Dean position. He has volunteered for Black History Month, Black Graduation at the Brown Center, CSUN's Physical Adaptation Center, and has volunteered to feed homeless families during the holidays. Kari participated in the National Student Exchange and also studied at Mississippi State University. His dean wrote, quote, Kari's consistent academic behavior has him poised to graduate with honors, something that is difficult to do at any university and all the more complicated when one considers some of the tremendous personal trials that Kari has had to face. He has had to endure periods of great despair and great personal loss in his family, including his mother and brother who lost their lives violently and unexpectedly. Despite those challenging difficulties, Mr. Campbell Wright has prevailed as demonstrated in his character of perseverance that shows in everything that he does, whether it is being a son, a student, a manager, or a leader of others. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, let's congratulate Kari Campbell Wright.
The next Outstanding Graduating Senior Award, also sponsored by the Karen Leon and Rita Goldstein Salter Memorial Fund, is presented to Alexis Aleman. Alexis Aleman will be graduating magna cum laude with a degree in biology and a 3.85 grade point average. Alexis managed this with a strong work ethic, a commitment to his education, and the tenacity to overcome his challenges. Alexis says that attending CSUN was the best decision I ever made. Admittedly, not the best student in high school, Alexis decided to give it his all his first semester at CSUN and earned a 4.0 GPA. That was his turning point. He knew that with commitment, it was possible to earn good grades. Alexis has evolved from a reserved student who felt he had to do as much as he could on his own without asking for help, to one who is open to working as part of a team and open to taking on new challenges. Alexis has worked in the research lab of Dr. Thomas Minahan since 2017, focusing on the development of carbohydrate-based ligands for the molecular recognition of DNA, solving problems which plagued several of our graduate students. Alexis is on schedule to finish the preparation of his target molecule this summer, with a publication on his work to appear shortly thereafter. One professor wrote, "Alexis's accomplishments in the lab to date are impressive, and his character, shaped by his life experiences, is a testament to the strong will of one whose life will be dedicated to the service of others. Best of luck with the MCAT, Alexis, and with med school in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexis Alaman."
The final student being recognized as an outstanding graduating senior sponsored by the CSUN Foundation is presented to Beverly Ntagu. Beverly is graduating CSUN in just 4 years with a degree in psychology. Bev, as she's affectionately known, exemplifies each trait of a matador: courage, grace, creativity, ability, and most of all, strength. Beverly has been active inside and outside the classroom. She was one of my students. She served as a building manager for the University Student Union, president of her sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, for 2 years, and was this year's Associated Students president. She has also been actively involved in community service work with a specific focus on empowering Black young men and women. In all of these leadership roles, Beverly has been committed to equality, access, and taking actions that enhance students' experiences at CSUN. She is also present in the classroom. Just last semester, even while serving as Associated Students President, she was on the Dean's List with straight A's. As one of her professors wrote, quote, "Beverly is the student that sits in the front of the row of the class and is totally engaged with the learning process at all times. Her papers are a joy to read, and she is a role model for her fellow students. She goes the extra mile and is a joyful and driven human being." While first to acknowledge her many blessings and their positive impact on her life, Beverly knows she has been equally formed and changed by the unexpected loss of her father just a few short years ago. With strength and determination, Beverly overcame this tragedy and continued to live in her purpose with grace, so that in 2017, she was awarded the most inspirational Student Assistant Employee Award at the University Student Union, Incorporated, and since that time has shared her story at professional conferences to help motivate others. Her matador spirit, her determination to be successful, and her desire to make CSUN a better place for students makes her the perfect selection for the Outstanding Graduating Senior Award. Bev, your angel is proudly looking down at you right now. Congratulations, Beverly.
The final award presented this evening will be to the university's Wolfson Scholar, which is the highest academic award bestowed upon an undergraduate at CSUN. The Wolfson Scholar Award is presented each year in memory of the university's first vice president, Dr. Leo Wolfson, to the senior selected as the outstanding scholar in the graduating class. Not only must the student have an exceptional academic record, but also must have made significant contributions to the university or to the community through co-curricular and extracurricular activities. In other words, the Wolfson Scholar is a well-rounded individual for whom both scholarship and service play important life roles. Before announcing this year's Wolfson Scholar, I want to acknowledge the 6 other finalists for the award. These students are outstanding scholars who have contributed extensively to the communities in which they live, work, and study. They will be honored at this week's commencement ceremonies as the Dean's Scholar for their college. Will each finalist please stand when I read your name? Amy Barnes, business law major, David Nazarian, College of Business and Economics. Nolan Bumstead, electrical engineering major, College of Engineering and Computer Science. Melissa Pistone, English major, College of Humanities. Zained Ali Hussein, Family and Consumer Sciences, Nutrition and Dietetics major, College of Health and Human Development. Varig Abed, Cell and Molecular Biology major, College of Science and Mathematics. O'Shea Rogers, History major, College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. Please join me in recognizing the accomplishments of all these Wolfson Scholar finalists.
This year, the recipient of the university's Wolfson Scholar Award is Alexandria Nicole Smolin from the Mike Curb College of Arts, Media, and Communication. Nicole is a cinema and television arts major in film production. She has a 3.99 GPA and graduated summa cum laude in fall of 2018. Nicole is a proud graduate of the General Education Honors Program and has received numerous scholarships, including the Mark Yobbs Memorial Scholarship and the Jean Picker Furstenberg Family Scholarship. She's also a member of the National Society of Collegiate Scholars. After portraying a victim of human trafficking in an acclaimed feature film at age 16, Nicole felt compelled to study film from the production side, dedicating herself to using art and entertainment to make a difference. Since then, she demonstrated her commitments to equity and justice through volunteer work and speaking engagements. Her influence at CSUN has reverberated far beyond her deep involvement in cinema and television arts. She acted as a peer mentor with incoming freshmen to model habits for optimal student success and served as a volunteer note-taker for Disability Resources and Educational Services and the National Center on Deafness. Since graduating in the fall, she has teamed with 2 fellow CSUN graduates to found a female-led film production company, and this month she will have the distinct pleasure of seeing a short film she produced as a student screened at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival, representing CSUN on the global stage. We all have a story to tell, Nicole states. Art is a universal language that unites diverse people through a shared emotional experience. Please join me in applauding the accomplishments of our 2019 Wolfson Scholar, Nicole Smolin.
All of the students being honored here this evening represent the highest achieving members of this year's graduating class. They have excelled and distinguished themselves during their tenure here at CSUN and are being recognized this evening for their scholastic and personal achievement. Students distinguished for scholastic achievement are graduate students with a grade point average of 3.885 or above, and graduating seniors with a grade point average of 3.5 or above through fall 2018. Students recognized for their personal achievement have maintained at least a 3.0 grade point average while demonstrating excellence of an artistic, creative, or athletic nature, or they have displayed outstanding leadership skills or completed extensive community service work. And now, at this 37th Annual Honors Convocation, we celebrate our heritage of excellence in you, members of the graduating class of 2019, who have earned honors recognition. In acknowledgement of your accomplishments, the university will now present you with a commemorative medallion to symbolize your commitment to high academic success and co-curricular achievement. Out of respect for all the honorees, please remain seated until all recipients have been honored. Following the conclusion of this ceremony, we will all celebrate together at the grand reception being held in your honor at the Matador Square and University Student Union Plaza.
We will begin with the Dean from the Mike Curb College of Arts, Media, and Communication, Dr. Dan Hoskin.
Will the students from the Mike Curb College of Arts, Media, and Communication please rise? All right. I would like to celebrate the accomplishments of these students who will go on to be the next great artists, media creators, scholars, communicators, journalists, musicians, and theater artists. Wherever their path leads them, they will take what they learned in the Mike Curb College at CSUN and make the world a better and brighter place. Congratulations.
The Dean from the David Nazarian College of Business and Economics, Dr. Chandra Subbaraniam.
Will the students of the David Nazarian College of Business and Economics please rise? I would like to celebrate your hard work and accomplishments over the past few years that have brought you here today. We know you will become leaders in industry and serve the region by advancing the visions of your organizations using the skills, competencies, and networks you have developed here. We believe in you, the business graduate, to be a force for a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Dean from the Mike D. Eisner College of Education, Dr. Christine Hayashi.
I'm the Associate Dean. Will the students of the Michael D. Eisner College of Education please rise? There they are. We would like to congratulate these graduating students of our nationally recognized Deaf Studies program, as well as our new teachers, school counselors and psychologists, administrators, marriage and family therapists, early childhood specialists who are leaving our institution prepared to offer best practices in their field, engagement in community and school partnerships, and a strong commitment to equity and social justice. Congratulations.
Interim Dean from the College of Engineering and Computer Science, Dr. Hamid Johari.
Will the students of the College of Engineering and Computer Science please rise? Right. I would like to praise the accomplishments of these students who will conceive and design remarkable products and software and make the world a better place through advancements and innovations in technology. Congratulations.
Interim Dean from the College of Humanities, Dr. Jackie Stallcup.
College of Humanities students, please rise. I am so proud to recognize you who have the knowledge and skills needed to succeed in a rapidly changing, highly diverse, internationally competitive world. You will contribute to our world as responsible global citizens. Congratulations.
Dean from the College of Health and Human Development, Dr. Farrell Webb.
Will the students from the College of Health and Human Development please rise? Okay. In truth, we are the College of Life. Each of these students is dedicated to enriching the human condition across the lifespan. As professionals, our graduates enrich health and human well-being, fitness and activity, and living environments for individuals, families, and communities. Congratulations to all of you.
Dean from the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences, Dr. Jan Dominic Searcy.
Will the students of the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences please stand up? We celebrate and congratulate you, who are the next generation of community and national leaders, innovators, researchers, historians, educators, advocates for social and cultural justice, clinicians, social service professionals, policy and GIS experts, public servants, and scientists. You know, it's said that the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. The future is yours. Congratulations.
Dean from the College of Science and Mathematics, Dr. Jerry Stinner.
Jan, you want to come up here and read mine for me? Will the students of the College of Science and Mathematics please rise? I would like to celebrate the accomplishments of these students who have done so well at CSUN and who will go on to use the tools of science and mathematics to help solve some of the world's greatest challenges. Congratulations, science and math majors.
Ladies and gentlemen, once more, President Harrison.
Will all of the students honored here tonight please rise? Now, students, at this point, my script is telling me I'm supposed to tell you to put on your medallions, but I'm looking around and we have a pretty smart group of students here, right? You already have on your medallions, so we're a step ahead. Congratulations, we'll cover that. We've covered that. Now, I thank you all for sharing this important occasion with us this evening. I particularly want to encourage you to wear your medallions next week at the commencement ceremonies, where we will again honor you. So please don't lose the medallion. I now ask that all of our students, our staff, faculty, and alumni of CSUN to rise and join us for our alma mater, Hail to the Matadors, which will be under the musical direction of Professor Scott Whitfield and the Jazz A Band and performed by Sophia Stratton. You'll find the words to the alma mater on the back of the Honors Convocation program if you haven't memorized them by now. But after the alma mater, we invite you to the grand reception, which will take place just to my left or to your right at the Matador Square and the University Student Union. Please join us and help celebrate our honored students. May you all have a wonderful and safe and peaceful evening.